April. Well, a reminder that the state assessments begin next week for all through grade students. And that will be the ELA assessments, 3 days long, 90 minutes each day. And it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The week following will be math, and that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, again, 3 days, 90 minutes long. So, just want to keep you apprised of that. I know teachers are spending a little bit of time still prepping students a little bit, but they really do sort of teeter on burnout if there's too much time spent thinking about testing. So I think the elementary teachers have done a great job of balancing just regular instruction with some orientation to new tests. We don't really know if those new tests look 100% like, so that makes it easier to not spend too much time doing it. Quick evaluation update by the end of April. I just want to let you know I'll have 84% of elementary teacher evaluations completed, and that would mean by the end of May I'll be at 100. So just to give you, I did a little breakdown, and it's nice to think that next year those numbers will be higher much earlier on, which is just nice coming in the spring. The popcorn sales were a wild success, and I do want to commend Andy for the amount of time that she has dedicated to the cause of raising funds for the students, for 5th and 6th grade students this year. Quite a few of them participated. Some of them have some pretty scary big orders coming in, and that money goes very, very far in their school careers. And I just really want to extend a warm thank you on behalf of everybody. I don't think they realize how much time and energy you put into this, how much is going on in the background, but I wanted to.
Well, I've had a time working with them, they're good kids, and it's an easy introduction to what they'll be facing when they get to 7th grade.
I did want to spend a moment, I'm just going to pass these around, just to give you a sense of the reading progress of our students, especially because we're going into the assessment period. There are some new rigorous standards in play. We've reviewed that the growth that our students may be achieving and our teachers' teaching abilities will not all be reflected on the new assessment yet. So students are still learning and teachers are still teaching very well. But I wanted to focus on our students who are at or above grade level going into the assessment, and explain just a couple ways that we measure that for reading, just so you can experience that there is growth, but we are in a high educational needs district as well, just to keep us leveled on our expectations. But I just took grades 2, 4, and 6, and I looked at the beginning of the year dibbles, and I'll tell you what that is, and the middle of the year dibbles. Those are measurements, especially in the young grades, of phonemic awareness, as well as a student's ability to quickly and accurately pronounce a word, even if it's a word that actually doesn't exist. There's something called nonsense word fluency as part of that. It also, to the extent possible at those basic levels, measures reading comprehension and vocabulary. So if we just look at grade 2, we see that at the beginning of the year, there are only 9 students who are at or above grade level with dibbles. But at the middle of the year, that increases was up to 13. We do an end of the year as well. And obviously, getting more than 50% would be fantastic, but we are looking at those low numbers of skilled students coming in. At grade 4, we started with 12 out of 34 and popped down to 8. There's a reason for that. That dibbles test becomes more complicated. They start to ask fairly complex comprehension questions, so it's actually a really good indicator of where our students are at. At grade 6, we don't do dibbles anymore. That's true. But those are just kind of funky numbers, because dibbles isn't a real thing. You can't say, like, what's your dibbles number, and have any of us compare that and have that make sense. But what you can is looking at F&P levels. That's Fountas and Vanilla. That's your reading level. So you want to bring your grandchild to the library and get them a level book, and you wonder, what F&P level are you at, child? Well, in grade 2, we had 50% were at level I. That's a grade 2 at level I. And we are still there and maintaining that. They will have grown to a level L. We have students progressing at a reasonable level, at an expected level of progress. What this doesn't show, and it gets a little too complex to bring in right now, there's quite a few in that grade 2 who are just below. We put them at the yellow level. Those are students for whom we are putting more of those remedial services in place to at least keep them right on the cusp. And some of them will move up, some of them will move up, but at least we have probably closer to 75% of our students are a tiny bit below or at grade level for reading. In grade 4, massive growth, no, but again, consistent growth upward. We had 22 at the beginning of the year, we have 23 now. Again, some of those are kids who are closing major gaps in reading. That means they're picking up grade level books and able to read them, and they're reading more frequently. At grade 6, we had 12 who were at W, and now at the middle of the year, we have 17. So that statistic to me is still amazing, that at grade 6, we still have huge jumps in students who are reaching grade level in reading. So it's pretty powerful. These two measurements are pretty powerful instruments for at least trying to track it. Now, when you put the two together, you say, well, why is one so low and why is one so high? They measure differently, and they measure different ways in which you would help a child overcome problems with phonics versus problems with actually understanding what they read. But we do have growth, and this is just a sample. At some of the other grade levels, we have equal, if not better, growth. But I just wanted to celebrate, there's a big commitment by teachers to adopt the differentiated reading, which is to say, if I came in at a P and Amy came in at a W, we don't get the same instruction for part of the day. I'm still trying to make it to W, Amy's still trying to make it to, Z. And then we do come back together. So there are a lot of students who've made massive gains. And in terms of reading and a child's ability to read, they're life-altering. So I'm extremely proud of our teachers for all the work they've put into a very different approach to reading. And I know that in the years to come, that gap will grow smaller and smaller, and kids will love to learn to read and love to read. There are a lot of students who just are now loving to read who, even in 6th grade, are just learning to love to read. So I'm really happy for that. But growth is slow. It's incremental, for sure. I didn't know if anyone wanted to play bingo today.
I brought my
bingo. I was
bingo. I always bring my bingo.
Just to keep us on our path, we've got lots and lots of concepts that are all, converging right now. If anyone wants to, I do have stickers. But I thought today that we would talk about, in the teacher-principal column, developing versus applying. So we're going to talk about developing versus applying. And then we're going to very briefly, in the student management system, talk about data warehouse extracts. Sounds like something you might pick out from the Browning accounts. Okay. So if you were carrying around your teacher evaluation instruments, you would see that for every indicator that was given, there's a scale. And it starts at not using, which is to say, not using because you should have used it but didn't. And it goes all the way up to innovating. Innovating meaning it's a standout, unique use of the strategy that's so specific to your student population, and you've monitored its effectiveness. So that's a rarity, but it does occur. I wanted to focus on 2 of the 5, so you can get a sense of what the difference would be between a developing reading and an applying reading, because those are the 2 most frequent levels that are given. So we're just going to talk briefly about tracking student progress and celebrating success. And I won't take too long on this, but if we looked at tracking student progress, what that means is a teacher facilitates tracking student progress on one or more of the stated learning goals that they provide to students using a formative approach to assessment. There are many teachers rated at developing. It's a brand new strategy. It's not that folks haven't monitored the progress of their students in the past. It's that they're specifically monitoring progress relative to whatever learning goals they put forth. So it's got its rules and it's got a real specific description. So there are some rated at applying because what they do, and this is the difference, developing is you're using it. I do ask for students to track their progress, maybe just track the reading level of advancement. But I don't ask them on a day-to-day basis, your learning goal today was to, I'm totally making this up, was to be able to read 60 words per minute. How close are you today? So the difference between developing is you're using it quite well. But when you're applying, you're using the strategy and you're also monitoring to see if it has an actual effect on your students. It's not just a matter of saying, I'm using it, it's that you're using it and there's a net gain for your students. Sometimes that's difficult to determine, but there are also some among the folks in the school who are innovating in it. They have ceaselessly kept students focused on what the learning goal for the day is. They have worked diligently to make sure that the students are monitoring their own progress and have a very clear understanding of where they really stand when it comes to learning. Some have created beautiful scales that show a student exactly where they stand. But it's very difficult work, so there are very few who really met that part. The other one I just wanted to talk about, just to try and get an understanding of the difference again between developing, which is a fine rating, and applying, would be celebrating success. Now, there isn't a teacher in the school who doesn't celebrate academic success of students. But again, it's a really super specific indicator, and it's not just saying, hey, Terry, you did a really good job in class today, you're super. Hey, everybody, you guys just did a really super job on this project. It's so much more specific than that. So that can often be developing. It's saying you're making the effort to acknowledge student achievement and do it in a celebratory way, whatever that might look like in your classroom. To be applying is to be pinpoint specific back to that learning goal. It all comes back to that learning goal. Not only did I monitor you on your progress on the learning goal, but then maybe you were a 3 out of 4, and I asked every 3 who self-rated as a 3 to stand up and give themselves a hug and tell themselves that tomorrow they're going to be at a 4. It's so focused on the learning goal. So those are some of those differences, and that's sometimes when we're going at this for the very first time, especially celebrating success, because I think it concerns teachers to think that they are not supportive of their students, and they absolutely are. It's the specificity of what's presented on the scale that makes that difference. And again, there are a couple who are actually innovating. They've tied this massive scale of achievement to the individual daily goals, and everything that's a celebration in that room is around that academic achievement. And you can see that it's time consuming and exhausting to do. But when you ask a student, for instance, when's the last time your teacher celebrated success? Oh, she just did today. And how does it make you feel? It makes you feel great. I was at a 3 yesterday, I'm at a 4 today. I want to be a 5 tomorrow. It's meant to be student-centered and to totally be about students' achievement. So those are just 2, and I figured I would just spend a few minutes talking about that.
How do kids do they understand the concept, what's 1, what's 2, what's 3, what's 4? I mean, how do they know those things?
Because the first thing that we have as an indicator is posting a learning goal and a scale. And the scale could be, I'll use an example, and then would you like to offer one too? There's one called like the fist of 5, in which 0 is like, I have no idea what you just said to me. And 5 is, I could teach this.
Yeah.
Or, and some teachers, in an innovative way, will say, I do know you're a 5, I do know you're a teacher. Mandy was out yesterday, so I'm going to ask you be her teacher today and get her caught up. Just as a way of acknowledging them and as a way of making sure that the students can get as re-engaged as possible given time. So that's one, that's just five.
So especially the daily learning objectives, a lot of staff do use some form of visual where it has to do with, the fist to five, or I saw in elementary, which I thought was really cute, the double thumbs down, maybe here, something like that. But then there's other staff who tie that into some type of numerical value. Not necessarily a grade, but, this beyond five, maybe it's a, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, something like that. So, and how they rate it is usually identified right either within the classroom on a poster that's consistently there, especially the fist to five or the, this kind of thing. Or it's right on their daily objective on the student's material when they walk in. So the student knows that day, that would be one of the first things that the staff would address.
It's consistent from class to class, so that,
Not necessarily.
so if you go in one room and, I got a 2, then the same thing could be in a 3 in the next room.
I would generally say people that are doing like the 0 to 5, that would probably be fairly consistent, maybe some small differences, but, and the flexibility is there, the staff can choose whatever they want.
But you do this every single day with every single child in the room.
Sometimes it's just a
That's the
mindset.
idea. That's the idea.
Right, but I mean, it's,
And
I'm
this is
thinking
something
on a day,
that
that's a,
we're at a basic level of this. And this is the first year that we've instituted the self-evaluation, self-monitor, whatever you want to call it.
right.
And the teachers are at that basic level. For the most part, all the high school people have a 0 to 4 scale up on the wall. They might have it with pictures, they might have it with words, they might, but for the most part, everybody's 0 to 4. What we'll be looking for next year is to really go more specific to a writing assignment, a homework rubric, so that it's not just one generic rubric. It'll hit everything that they're going to start using throughout the day. And it can't just be 0 to 4 anymore. It's going to have to be much more detailed. And this is all something that, again, where the year ends, we need to sit down with teachers, train them, teach them, and get them ready for it.
Well, obviously, it's great because you'll have less people falling through the cracks. But wow, that's a lot of work every single day.
Yes, it is.
It is. And some folks have said that they kind of feel silly doing it, and I think
Is
that
it
until it
recorded
becomes
every day?
natural.
It's recorded?
There's all sorts
Some
of
teachers are
ways.
recording, they'll have to physically record it next year. This year, that's not a mandate for us. Every district's a little different how they're doing it. Next year, they'll have to be tracking it, formal and informal.
But like here is it at a really nice level. There's one of our teachers created a scale of understanding of vocabulary. So it's moved beyond and what it is it's saying like a level 2 is your ability to define a word. I gave you a word, you memorize the definition, and then you sit back and probably spell it and define it. A level 3 is where you obviously can spell it and define it, and then you can use it in a sentence correctly. A level 4 with it kind of goes up the scale, so then you're at the top and you're using antonyms with it and synonyms with it. You have a fluid understanding of what the word is. So what that scale is saying is this is knowledge. It's more easily done with math. Math goes straight from can you use 2 plus 2 and get the right answer? Now can you look at it in a word problem and model what that solution is going to be? Now can you do that independently in a similar word problem? Now can you take 3 different math problems and use them all in one, formerly not known to you, actual real world situation? Or can you write to explain why? So even though it seems like it's going to get more complicated, what it actually should move into becoming is saying this is knowledge, and this is where you fall on it. Because a lot of kids think, well, if I don't know how to use that word in a sentence, I must not know anything. And that's not true. You may have beautiful recall and wonderful memory. You have beautiful spelling, and you can memorize, every book in the Bible. But when you're asked to recall it, in a different situation, you can't. But it gives children a better understanding of where are my own limitations and what do I need to work on. And it also gives the remedial staff a sense of like, where are their limitations and what do they need? What do they need to keep moving up that scale of knowledge? But we're several years out from that. If we can get to tracking progress, by next year, we'll have, I mean, we really will have made progress.
Well, certainly an unbelievable task.
Some people have used really novel approaches to green lights and red lights and gumballs and all, like, it runs the gamut. I think just to keep it
As the personalities.
Exactly.
But when you say like for the kids understand it, one of the neatest things is when in the kindergarten class, when we first started using it, one of the girls, I said, so what does it really mean if you're a two? And she said, I get to stay at the table and get extra help. She wasn't real, but, and then the others knew I have to go back to my desk. And they just, but, they didn't see it as a negative at that age.
Good.
But they
Good.
saw, that they needed more help.
Yeah.
So some of it's fun when you ask the kids the questions of what do those things mean.
Yeah.
And even some of the older kids have said, I finally know what I'm supposed to learn again.
Exactly, that's what it sounds like, they know where they have to go.
Kids saying that a lot. I
Yeah.
don't know if you see that, Joe, in yours, but kids for the first time say, it's defined what I need to pay attention to today. So,
I haven't even objected since day one, so that's not really a problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Would you like to do the high school?
Oh, is that okay? I didn't know if you had one.
I just wanted to elaborate on what Amy was saying about the 3D testing, it goes just beyond setting time aside during the day for students to be tested. There's all sorts of modifications that need to be made for students that are in CSE, separate testing locations, it means subs in the building. It really is an involved process that, the students are being tested for 6 days out of 10 school days, so it's an exhausting process for them as well. Wanted to let you know that we have started a Be the Change team to follow our challenge day. We kind of finally pulled that piece together, so I have faculty members currently that are just on the team, and we decided that would be our intent for the rest of the year, is remain as the staff. And we're going to be hosting an activity every Tuesday. So for instance, next Tuesday for the last 10 weeks, it might sound small, but we're going to start small. We're encouraging students to say please and thank you 12 times, because 12 was the magic number of hugs that a person needs each day. So, just to, again, kind of remind them of the behaviors that we talked about during those challenge day experiences that we had here at the school. We're working on getting prepared for senior breakfast, which is coming up next month. We have our NHS induction ceremony this Friday morning at 8 o'clock, if anyone's interested in attending. And next Friday, we have students attending the NISMA Solo Festival and Ensemble. And Mr. Remington is taking his small business management class to JCC. I want to say there's a day this week and then a following day on Friday for a competition. Last year, I think they placed, I want to say they were first in their competition, if I remember correctly. But they go to JCC and compete against other students at the school in an entrepreneurial type setup where they also are utilizing the stock market. There's a program, I can't say off the top of my head what it is, and they work through these different scenarios and they attend for 2 separate days. And there's this competition. Eventually there's a winning team, and so they'll be participating in that.
Thanks, Amy. High school.
some just general things. Everybody got a copy of the letter from her, Cal, and Adams, and I guess just as a question, they're asking to meet informally. I'm assuming that meant full board. I didn't call her to clarify or specify. And I guess, do people want to set up a meeting again to meet with her and Cal? And obviously the letter's very vague, so it says nothing.
Do we go over there this time, or they come in
I
here?
will, see what she wants to do, because we had done it before and then it was just a full open session. So again, this doesn't say, 3 people from your board, it says.
We don't know what they mean by informal.
Right.
All right, so I will contact them on behalf of the board that yes, we're interested and see what their intentions are. On your documents, there was the application for high school principal. I don't know if everybody had a chance to look it over. If there were any questions or comments about what's there, or any additions anybody would like. colleges or other teachers or your superintendent or?
I'd rather see something from the superintendent and some type of reference.
And it's one of those things, if we don't get those, I'll look them up on the internet and call them anyway. So. Anything else, anyone? Okay.
Well, I can't bring it up, but I looked at it at home and it looked fine to me.
Yeah.
We will when we get later. We had 5 people up for tenure and only 5 were pleasantly being put on for tenure this evening, so it's very positive. In one of the conversations we had a little bit ago, one of the things that was recommended is to try to use some type of board training to kind of, I guess, get us all on the same page and learn some new and different stuff and be able to work together better as a board and administration. The best place, I guess, again, that I found is through NISCUS. But like any place like that, it comes with an expense. And what they are willing to do is 2 half sessions, which would be 3 to 4 hours per day, night, whatever days we could pick, for a total of $1,500. And that's much cheaper than NISBA. And I'm not saying cheaper is better, but NISBA was prohibitive and I couldn't even recommend for what they had asked. I'd have a whole scope of work, work with the superintendent of Everett to discuss the development and delivery, develop a customized discussion based on specific needs and requests, deliver the discussion at a time and place agreed upon by the district, facilitate and oversee, these are things they will do, provide follow-up and phone discussion. So, like I said, it's not cheap. We do have money still budgeted. I also recommended that we wait just to be certain after we have our 2 board seats filled. Just make sure we don't have to do it again or go over anything. So we would probably be looking at doing it in the summer. How does anybody think or feel or?
I think there should be some upgrade training.
I think we really need it.
I think it brings in new ideas and, there should be an update, so.
They come here?
Yes, they'll come here.
15-minute cover both sessions.
Yes, it's 7:50 a session. When they asked, I honestly said, I really think 1 is too much. When you sit there 8 hours, that really fries somebody.
Right.
Whereas if you break it into 2, it
So
will
2
cost
in the
us.
same day, like
No,
morning,
it can be
afternoon? Oh,
2 different evenings or a day and weekend or whatever we want. But with the 1,500, it also mileage is not included. And I know that both of the trainers are probably going to be coming from whichever one we end up getting, the Albany area. So we have to pay mileage on top. Okay, so I will pursue that further.
Do we have that information on here, or is
No,
that?
I just got it. So I can put it on there. I don't really.
We're talking about the summertime. Sooner we get those dates, we can block them out.
Right, we haven't picked any yet either, because I didn't know if we want to pick weeknights, weekend days, and I'm just, not to get stoned, but I just was trying to get what would be best for everyone.
Just
You know.
just so we can plug it in, so it's like, can you do it next week? Not really.
Right, so would people rather have nights, like on a board weeknight, or the opposite board night weeks, or?
Good idea.
How many hours per session?
Probably 3 to 4 is my guess.
Monday's pretty good, just out of the,
So opposite of board nights.
we're used to being here late on Monday nights, we're here.
Okay, well,
I can't speak for everybody, but.
Monday nights are good, good idea.
okay, I will pursue that for the night of Mondays. And obviously,